Good morning, folks. Welcome to Essential Ingredients Podcast. I'm your host, Justine and this morning we are here with Fabio Ziemssen from Germany, from NX Food, Next Gen Food, which of course resonates with me because of course I'm also with Next Gen Food. We also have here Yvette, who is with Next Gen Food, Next Gen Chef. Goodness, almost said Next Gen Food. She's been with us for a while, and we've asked her to join us because she is passionate about plant-based foods, cell-based foods, and this is a track we're passionate about and doing. So we've asked her to participate in this because she has a lot of really good questions and is really leading us in this track as we talk with many people that are thought leaders and leading this initiative around the world. So Fabio, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here.
So I always like to ask our guests to maybe introduce themselves a little bit, as opposed to me reading their bio and giving a bit of a canned intro for them, because I think it gives our listeners a greater sense to who you are by letting you give them a little sense by just introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about you. Would you mind?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Justine. And as I said, thank you very much to having me on your show. It's really interesting to see how we can together develop this space. Yeah, my name is Fabio Ziemssen. I'm 35 years old. I have one little son. His name is Matteo. And he is, especially these days in the times of Corona, he's really the lightning in every day. So this helps me to be really taking or to handle this whole home office situation a bit better. Yeah, I'm since 10 years working in the field of food tech and food innovation. I started 10 years ago when we founded together with a friend of mine a bio or an organic subscription company for fruit and vegetables for companies. And back then we discovered that the whole sector of digitalization in the retail environment is the next new thing. And I specialized on what we call in Germany e-food. It's all about the online grocery sector. And when I entered into this field, I discovered that there are so many interesting people, so many passionate people who want to create the future of food distribution, that I got much more deeper in this field. And then I discovered that it's not only about the digitalization of the distribution, it's the digitalization and the whole process around the whole food ecosystem. And this is what really inspires me day by day to be in this triangle from food, innovation, and founders to get all this different perspectives on the topic, and to tackle the big challenges of tomorrow with good people and working on the innovation front side.
Wow. Okay. So, but you've come a long way since then, and you've had a variety of different things from then to where you are now. So let's just go back to the beginning. Why food?
Yeah. So food is something that's interested me for a very long time. So I had the pleasure or the good luck that my grandfather was a farmer. And so I spent a lot of time at his farm here close to my hometown. And this was the first time where I really discovered that you can really live food, because we spent a lot of time in the garden, and he harvested all the fresh foods, and he had a lot of good ingredients there, a lot of different herbs he grew there, etc. He had his own greenhouse. He really, there was nothing what I could imagine there was everything that you can grow in Germany. He grew it in his backyard. And so this was when I really had the first touch point. And after school or during school, I was working for a lot of restaurants, and I was working for catering services, and it was always working with chefs together and working the service, but also working in the logistics, that I started after my school an apprenticeship at a retailer. And besides this, I did also some studies, but it was always this how do I say, this connection to the food sector and the development of how we can look into the food topic in the future. Because as I just said, that the digitalization was the first big aspect, but when you get really into the detail, you could already see that it's not only, as I said, about the digitalization, it's also about the resource allocation. Because if you're talking about new technologies, you are talking of vertical farming, you're talking about circular economy systems, you're talking about how urban areas look in the future, and then it's always connected to food. And the food thing has for me always a very rational side, a very functional side, and on the other side a very emotional side, a very social side, that you're sitting together with people, that food is the social glue, like some people say. And this is something to be really on this to keep the balance, to use only the good things of the technological and functional side to really enable things with food. This is something that really interests me. Yeah.
So you started to say that you would come home to your grandfather and you'd go in the garden, and started with the gardening and the plants and the vegetables. Did that play a role in your passion around this plant-based initiative, or is this separate and not related at all?
Yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's not related, but it's something that for me it was always a really big pain point in the whole development of our food ecosystem, that the gap between the point of production and the point of consumption is so huge that the people have really disconnected from the origin of food, that they have no feeling where the food is coming from and what needs to be in place, that food is really good, that you get the best nutrient scores out of it, and that it has the best quality. And this is something what I can see in the current development, that of course we have the ultra processed side on food. It's there because our system needs to be more efficient. But on the other hand, the new area of what I would say clean food is something that is really built by having a better feeling for what is necessary to create good food. And there you have the connection again. And this whole new movement is a lot of speed up and accelerated by the plant-based sector. And this is something where I see there's a huge connection, because the people believe in, okay, if there's something, a product that has a lot of plant-based ingredients in it, then it's even better. And in the most cases it is. And so you see that the people are really taking care of where the food is coming from, how it's developed, how it's grown, etc. And this is something that's really important.
So I think that's really true. And I think people are really more acutely aware and interested in where their food is coming from now more than ever. And in the US, plant-based is really reaching a tipping point, both with consumers and investors and suppliers, and they're rushing into the space. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like now in the space in Europe and where you are right now?
Yeah, so the vegan and the vegetarian concept of food is especially in Germany, it's a quite old one. But it was, and this is, you can see it in the development, that Germany was always one of the companies where you see a lot of products that are developed in a vegan and a vegetarian way. What is new about this food new development, that it's now a development that it's not in some special areas in our society tackled by the intellectuals, etc. It's more now in an area where everybody has access to this new food product, and that this new plant-based food is now, I would say, it's modern. It's a certain lifestyle. It's not something where you really show people that if you are eating meat, you are evil. It's just, hey, if you are eating plant-based, it's better and it's modern. You are a modern person, yeah. If you're taking care of yourself, and this is something what really accelerates the whole market, and what you can also see in Germany, what is really a new movement, especially what in times of COVID-19, you see that the people are taking more care about their eating habits, and this whole health and lifestyle trend is really is really supported by all these new products. So there is a development now, and I would say and you see it, for example, that the biggest German plant-based producer, Rügenwalder Mühle, they are now, this is in origin, it's a meat company. They are now doing more than 50% with plant-based food. And this is how you can see also the development there. And I must really say that this new area, in the past, it was always that the people from traditional and conservative business areas, they said to me, hey, Fabio, this is just a topic where some people from Berlin or from Hamburg are talking about in their fancy restaurants, etc. That, wow, there's plant-based, etc. And all the people that are taking care of animal welfare. But then I'm saying, no, it's a new generation of people, and it's the people that are looking into good food, and that they have now also the access to good food. And this is what really drives this new trend. And this is absolutely important to acknowledge.
Yeah, I would agree. Do you see that there are similarities between the US and Europe and Germany? Do you feel that it's more ahead in some ways in one place versus the other?
Yeah, I would say, for example, the whole how do you say it, the renaissance of farmers market, I would say. So that in the US, I see that the people are more and more going also to the farmers market, and they love whole foods and this kind of concept, because they're giving an authentic feeling about how food is produced and how and where it's coming from. And this is
I
something
would
that,
agree with that. I also feel like you're meeting the farmer, you're connected there. There's fewer touch points, especially as
yeah,
we talk about COVID, right?
yeah,
I feel safer going to the farmer. I also feel like I'm going direct to the farmer. I get to know my farmer. I get to choose. I get to hear how things are produced, what's in the soil, how they're treating the animals, how they're, what they're doing. And that resonates with me. And I have a choice. I
absolutely.
get to choose which farm I'm buying from.
Yeah, absolutely. And this feeling, and this is what I said at the beginning, that due to the fact that was this huge gap between where the food is produced and where it's consumed, now the people want to have the feeling to its point of origin again. Yeah, they want to have this feeling of safety, of authenticity, etc. And this is why they want to close this gap now. And this is why farmers markets are growing in a way. Here's just a farmer's market around the corner, and then every Saturday it's totally crowded. It's totally crowded, and this, and especially in COVID-19 times, the people were standing around the block in several rows just to be there and to get the product. And this is something where I see a lot of similarities between the US and also the European markets, that the people want to get access to good food, and that the garden centers are exploding because of people want to buy seeds, they want to buy soil to grow it on in their gardens, etc. So that there's an really an inner feeling to get more access to good food. So this is where I see at the moment the similarities. On the other hand, of course, this new, and I call it always the new food universe, that we have now products in place which have all the same parameters and characteristics like the old products, but are now better in taste, better in their ingredients, better in their social and economical footprint, and all this kind. And this food universe is now built by a lot of startup companies, and this is what I see on both sides. A lot of development there. The only difference is in the financing aspect. So in Europe, you have not so many big investors which are really helping companies to get on the level like Beyond Meat, Impossible Food, etc. But you see also examples like Oatly, yeah, which is in the field of oat milk.
They've been making the news a lot lately.
Yeah. that there are also this kind of unicorns growing in this field, but this is something. The new food universe is built by a lot of new food startups, and I see it in the US. There is a whole topic of botanicals growing in the non-alcoholic spirit segment.
The mocktails, etc. Fabio, we're going to take a short break, have a little announcement from one of our sponsors. We'll be right back. want to thank today's sponsor, NextGen Chef. NextGen Chef feeds members with the knowledge and tools that they need to create concepts with purpose and succeed. If you're listening today, they are offering a 1-year subscription for any new founder that wants to participate at a special discounted rate. For more information, email team@nextgenchef.com. If you're interested in becoming a member or just a part of the community, email NextGen Chef at team@nextgenchef.com. You can also follow them on Instagram at NextGen Chef, as well as on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Thank you again, NextGen Chef, for making this podcast possible. Together, we can change the future of food. So welcome back to our listeners. Thanks so much, Fabio, again for joining us, and Yvette. I just want to recap for a minute. We've had a great conversation so far. We're learning a lot about the landscape of alternative proteins and how things are changing in plant forward, and a lot of these unicorns that are coming out of the woodwork, and how things are growing both here and in Europe. And Fabio, I'd love for you to maybe just share a story about one of the companies, maybe from the US, and how they've expanded globally and into Europe that you've been working with, and how that translates.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. Yeah, so as I described in the beginning, is that we are since now 10 years in this field of food innovation, and since 6 years specialized in all the food tech topics. And of course, it was also something that we saw in not only in the solution field, and there I will give you an example later on in the field of vertical farming, but also in the field of food products. And when we heard that there are some companies in this field from the US, like Beyond Meat, Impossible Food, we said, okay, how can we access and how can we collaborate with them in getting to the European market? And then we met the team of Beyond Meat in one of, it was at a fair in Milan here in Italy. And then we discussed with them together, how can we create the go-to-market to Europe? And this was something where we then discussed it with them, where we get also the right distribution partner on board. This was in this field, Metro Cash and Carry Germany, and wholesaler. And then we brought them together also with our buying office in Rotterdam, which is bundling the whole offers from a lot of distribution partners here in Europe. And then we helped Beyond Meat to get access into the German market. And of course, they took this opportunity, and then they also were working with some other companies. So this was something what was really, I would say, the prime example from bringing a US-based company into the German market or into the European market. Of course, there are a lot of other companies where we are in contact with, but the biggest challenge for them is always the distribution part, because you can imagine that they need to be on a certain stage where they can really produce and really expand into the European field. And the European market is very, very fragmented. And sometimes we have also the topic of the new food novel, which allows companies just under some circumstances to also produce and to deliver their products to the several markets in Europe. And this is something where we really need to work on and to help them to understand how the European landscape is working, and also how to get access to certain retailers and distribution partners in the market. But this is something where we can support and where we can help.
That's super interesting. I just wanted to make a comment on the dissimilarities between the US and the EU distribution. That, like you mentioned, in retailers, the US is more consolidated, so it's easier for anyone to, with a relatively low amount of effort, to build up their distribution across the nation, but it's very fragmented. So we really need partnership from people, from organizations like NX Food, like you, to introduce for importing products to access those channels. And my questions is around shelving and the messaging for plant-based foods between the US and the EU. For example, now we're seeing more plant-based products shelving next to fresh meat, and that really is a key driver for consumers to adopt the purchase of those for the first times or returning purchases, instead of putting them traditionally in the frozen area together with the other gardein and the tofu. I was wondering, where do you find the plant-based food in you? And in addition to that, the messaging, what is the key driver? You mentioned modernity, but on top of that, there are a couple of benefits. For example, the environmental, the health. In here, in the US, we whisper health, but scream taste. That's a flavor that a phrase that I love. So love to have you share a little bit about the insights in EU.
She's funny too, right, Fabio? She's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, full disclosure, I did not create that phrase, but I love to share that.
Doesn't make it any less funny. I like it.
No, definitely, you're right. So in Germany, we had the situation, as I said in the beginning, that there were a lot of vegetarian and vegan alternatives in the past, but these were not really alternatives in the matter that they really could compete with the original products, and therefore there were already some some retailers and of course some supermarkets. They had already prepared some shelf space, etc., for this kind of products. Now, due to the new alternative generation that wants to really mimic the original ones, they also claim to be in the same area as the originals are, so that you can really find plant-based products where the meat is. You can find alternative dairy products where the dairy products are, etc., etc. So that it's really right next to it. And this is something you said in the US they scream taste. I would go a bit further and would say it's not only taste, it's a use case, so that you can really use the alternative product in the same way you can use the original. And this is something that's really, really important, because in the old one, you had always to do some special recipes. You had to do some special cooking on using the products. It was always, for the simple consumer, it was always very difficult to adapt. And this is something that really makes this new generation of food products so interesting. And if we go a step further, when we are talking about cultivated product, it's even more easier, because you can really exchange this ingredient in your recipe. And if I just imagine a normal person has maybe 5 recipes in their top of mind, yeah, and one of them is, just imagine, spaghetti bolognese, yeah, then for them it's definitely easier if they have a plant-based solution and a meat-based solution, and they have the same. You can use them both in the same way, and then it's for them just a very easy decision to make. And of course, this is a decision that's made based on taste. And then afterwards, there comes the health aspect, and then there comes, I would say, the animal welfare aspect, etc., etc. But you need to have always highly motivated people to create this new market. And this is what I would always call the social story behind it, or the sustainable story behind it.
I would also venture to say you have the health, the wellness, but also the environments. Mm-hmm. Right? I would also say the environment is also quite a big factor in that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I met on Friday. I had a talk where I also combined this talk with a survey with all the people that were participating, and I asked them, this were just end consumers, and I asked them, what would you rank as the highest? I mentioned first animal welfare, then I said, okay, organic, non-GMO, and then I said at the third point is the CO2 footprint. And it was that the second one, organic and non-GMO, was highly ranked as the first one. After that, there were animal welfare, and almost zero, was the CO2 footprint discussion. And this is something that where I said, okay, wow, this is also good to see. And I would say the CO2 footprint was, for me personally, the whole environmental backbone story out of
Yeah.
it, because you can also create something behind it. But it was really that you can see organic and the non-GMO. I would say that's the health aspect, then the animal welfare aspect, and then the pure ecological or environmentally friendly aspect.
How many people participated in this survey? Just out of curiosity.
Just around 100, 120.
Really interesting. I want to do a similar survey. I'm really curious. Were most of your participants in Europe or global or?
No, it was just a participant. It was like an online TV show, something like this, and there a lot of people participated. Yeah, it was a big stream.
Do you mind if I do a similar survey?
You can do it, but I'm not sure if you can do it on this, because it's a pure German session, and they.
No, I mean, we'll do one. I want to do one with our audience. I'd be curious to see.
Of course, you can.
I can. Really curious to ask our listeners,
afterwards.
to ask the people listening here, what what makes them tick? What's most important to them? Is it their health? Is it the environment? What resonates with them? What makes them tick? What's going to make them, go spend their dollars? So that both for themselves, but also for the businesses that are making these products. I'm really curious.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, I don't want to get too off. I don't want to go off on a complete tangent here, but that got me inspired because I think that's really telling.
Yeah. So what for me was interesting, this is why I mentioned the survey, is that the audience, they were all generations where they were, and they were all social clusters, etc. So it was really a mass medium where I did it, and so it was quite interesting to see. But yeah, this is just on
interesting.
On the side.
Still interesting nonetheless, and it's good that you got like a whole cross section of people. It wasn't just low income or middle income or 1%ers or all white people or all African American. It was a large cross section of people, which is the best way to get feedback. So, well, I want to continue the conversation, and I'd be really curious, to just, dig a little bit deeper and just see, for our listeners here, maybe you can just share a couple, 3 to 5 tips for those aspiring entrepreneurs that are listening to this podcast, that are in the space as they're building their business. What might you recommend to them as they're building these alternative protein sources?
So for me, it's always a very, very good aspect in this field is to validate your product and to find your right go-to-market approach. So we just said that the use case and the quality are the key measures, for your success when it comes to the proof of market. And therefore, I always say the best way to really develop a good proof of market and a good proof of concept for your product is to choose the right partners in place and to choose the right go-to-market. And this is for me the hospitality sector. So if you have, for example, some restaurants, some chefs, they are the best sparring partners that you can have to develop your product. They are also the ones who decide, okay, if you have created a good product, we would go into a long-term relationship together, because they cannot change their recipes or their menus on a day-by-day basis. Then there are also good testimonials, because they need to sell your product. And this fourth thing is, they don't, for them, it doesn't really matter what your brand is about. They are just taking care of the product, because the end consumers or the guest in his restaurant, they don't see the brand. So if they are just looking at the product, and if you are really finding some good chefs for your product, then they are really the best partners to develop such a topic. And of course, it helps you also to overbridge the time between your product development and to hit the retail shelves, because you cannot go to a retailer and say, hey, yesterday we approached you with our version 2.4. Now we have already version 2.5, and you need to really have a good product in place where you really would say, okay, this is the final product, what we want to approach and where we want to go with in the market. And therefore you need to have the right culinary expert in your surround or in your ecosystem. And this is why I would always say, if you are developing some good products, take some chefs as validation or slash sparring partners, and then you develop together with them a good distribution strategy. And it's also for your marketing story, it's also very good, because you can create some kind of how do I say you can create some good marketing effects behind it, because if you have not only the chef as your testimonial, you can also create some good use cases where the media and everything takes care of, and then you create also a certain demand for your product, and this is quite good. And you have seen that all the good and big successful companies in this field, most of them had their go-to-market via the hospitality sector.
So I would say a bit of a shameful plug, but Next Gen Chef was built to provide that community and ecosystem for the food and beverage entrepreneurs. So I would invite all of our listeners to join the Next Gen Chef community today and connect with the food and beverage entrepreneurs, the chefs, the restaurateurs, the recipe developers, everyone. It was built to be able to provide that community that Fabio is talking about. And we want to be that. They want to be that resource. We want to be that resource. So whether it's in Germany, whether it's in the US, it's an online platform, and it's built to be able to do that. It was built because we believe that that is integral to be able to, for businesses, for individuals building better for you food businesses. So I am totally on board, Fabio.
Yeah.
So I hope all our listeners will go download the Next Gen Chef app. If you haven't, Fabio, download the Next Gen Chef app. Whether you're, in the business as a mentor, as a resource, as a consumer, et cetera, it's a great way to connect with other like-minded individuals, thought leaders, food startups, et cetera. It's a tailored LinkedIn, basically. I don't know another way to describe it. Of course, it's a new initiative, but it gives you access to archived talks that we've had with resources, with experts. It gives you different ways to connect with people one-on-one, when right now people can't do that. So I don't want to go off on a tangent on this, but really to that point about building that community, that ecosystem, this is an online way to support that idea. So for those of you that don't have it, download it. It speaks for itself. So, moving on, Fabio, but I really couldn't agree more with you. And one of the reasons I reached out to you was to extend our community, to be able to connect with you at Next Gen, because Next Gen Food, Next Gen Chef, Essential Ingredients, I felt like it was a natural fit for all of us to be able to connect, collaborate, and support these better for you food businesses across the pond, as I like to say.
No, definitely. And I just mentioned it, that the best partners for it is the hospitality sector, or are chefs for product. What we did also in the past, we did all this validation process with vertical farming solutions. And this was really interesting, because all the insights that you get from it, how chefs are using vertical farming or indoor farming solutions for their restaurants is really amazing. And we did this test over 3 months with 20 chefs in Berlin. It was really very
Can you share with us a little bit more detail about that test that you did?
Yes. So what we did is we took some vertical farming solutions from Tower Garden, from some other vertical farming providers. There was also one that was Green Garden and so on. So several companies. And what we did is we provided these solutions to some chefs in Berlin and said, okay, you can test it and you can share with us your experience with it. And this was really amazing, because they had just a solution there. And then the first one was ordering some seeds in the internet from plants you cannot buy in Germany to grow it there. Some people said, okay, I just want to have some beautiful greens there, some mangold and so on. And so he grew some really colorful herbs there. The third one was saying, okay, I just take basil in it, and so on and so on. And you see how they used this solution to create certain use cases just on their own and just customized for their restaurant. I got the feeling that there's the people are not willing in the fish field to change so rapidly as they do in the meat.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Would love to share if you're interested in some research on alternative seafood. I've been doing substantial research on both the space of plant-based and cell-based recently. And there are some interesting research, consumer survey that's conducted early this year to talk about what are some favorable packaging and messaging for consumers to adopt. The quality is pretty good.
Anyway, I do want to wrap up because I want to be mindful of everyone's time. And I think this was a great conversation, and I hope our listeners really enjoyed it because I think you gave them a lot of content. I feel like we got to learn a little bit about you, what's going on over in Europe. And I think it's really exciting what's going on there and the opportunities for the US market also to expand globally. So I'd love for you, though, to share a little bit about what you think and where you think alternative proteins is going within the next year and the next 3 to 5 years even.
Yeah, I think that development will be exponential like we see it at the moment. Yeah, that a lot of new brands will hit the market, and that in the end we will see a lot of acquisition, but we will see also that it will be really a rat race who will hit as a first the market in the cultivated meat sector. So at the moment, I see a lot of companies that are preparing for it, and we see they're pumping up like mushrooms everywhere. Yeah, but it will be really a rat race who will be the first one in the market, and this is for me the crucial point, who will also have the right quality that the consumer is willing to accept this as a new product. And this is something that that is really that we really need to discover. My prediction for it is also somehow aligned with the one that we worked in the studies with Etikani, so that we have a big market share in this space. In 2040, we are talking about 35% in just cultivated products. I would maybe slow it a bit more down, would talk about 30 or 25. But when you look at the classic supermarket shelves, yeah, and you see how many meat is used there in some products where you cannot really see that's meat, and you just imagine that this is the whole sector is then produced by a different meat source, I think it will be really, really fast. Yeah.
Wow, I'd love to see what a meal would look like.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think a meal will look like if you were thinking cultivated meats, plant forward, alternative proteins, and you were thinking about a plate? What would you see on it?
So I would say that we see really a mixture, because food needs to have still a soul. This is something, and you still have, I think it's also differentiates over the day in which time you eat what kind of food. I think in the morning and for lunchtime you eat very functional, and then you are just, you need to have something what's keeping your mind up and is not sleepy, etc. But in the evening, food will always be a celebration, and this is where you cook. This is where you use ingredients. This is where you drink a lot of wine. This is where you just live and live food. And this is how I see the difference. In the morning, you still see it already. You eat a muesli or a shake, or you drink a shake, very functional, a lot of vitamins in it, and good ingredients. And this is how I see the development here.
Great. I'm excited to see how it progresses over the next few years, and how our plates change, and what we keep in the house changes, and what we think of for breakfast and lunch and dinner, and how that changes both for us and our children, and what they look at and what they keep as staples in the house for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? Because I think it is going to evolve, and it's going to change, and where we think about oatmeal and muesli, and where we look at a steak and potatoes, or where we traditionally have for years, what people now are keeping in the freezer and the refrigerator as staples to have on hand, so that they don't have to go to the store every day.
Yeah.
What that's going to look like for them in the future. So any favorite pandemic recipes that you guys have been putting together for your son or for the family?
Yeah, there are a lot of recipes that we are working on. So there's a lot of exchange between my mother-in-law, and us to get the right recipes. And as I said, we are spending a lot of time at the farmers market at the moment. We are driving to some farmers with a bicycle. They are just in the suburbs to buy fresh ingredients, and then there's a lot of cooking there. So yeah, a very good ratatouille is, for example, something that my son also loves. Or we are, as I said at the beginning, I'm a big fan of pasta. I love a lot of pasta. I'm tasting a lot of different pasta recipes. Not all. Yesterday, on Friday, I received an insect bolognese sauce. I'm not sure that I will try this one, but this is also the good side of my job, that I get really a lot of products, but in most cases I need also to test them. Here I said already to my team, yeah, we need to go through this, yeah. But yeah,
I have a lot of meat extender from some people.
Yeah.
I have a lot of meat extender. So maybe you can share with us, and we can share it with our listeners if you don't have it, but we can certainly add it to the show notes. If you have a recipe from your family that you're exchanging that we can put on the website, we'd love to do that. So
Yeah, of course.
if you want to email that over to Yvette and myself, we'd love to include that.
Yeah, I would do so.
So for those businesses, for those startups, for those founders that we have listening today, how can they get a hold of you other than on Next Gen Chef? Because of course, since you're a big fan of the ecosystem and the community, we know you're going to upload your profile and connect with everyone there. But otherwise, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, they can connect with me via LinkedIn. Yeah,
Okay.
and of course, they can write me also an email, info@annex-food.com. So this is our email address, and of course, please feel free to contact me. And looking forward to stay in contact.
And just so they know, what is the big thing that you can help them with?
Okay. Yes, we can always help you to get the right access to the European food tech ecosystem, to the investors, to corporates, to the right distributors. We can help you to get access to validate your products in different markets, to get always to get the access to the different fields. And we are here to support you and to bridge the gap between technologies and the operational field of food.
Wonderful. Thank you, Fabio, for joining us. Thank you to our listeners for joining us. And Yvette, thank you for joining us. So if you like what you heard today, if you want to hear more about alternative proteins or changing the future of food, don't forget to subscribe to the Essential Ingredients podcast, available on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Android, all of the regular channels. And if you like what you hear, leave a review and let us know. I want to thank my guests and my listeners for joining me today at Essential Ingredients. If you like this episode and you want to make sure not to miss any others, please subscribe. You can find us on all the large channels, including iTunes. And I hope that you'll make sure to follow us and share it with your friends. For more information about Essential Ingredients, you can check out the website justinereichman.com. You can follow myself on Instagram and Facebook at Justine Reichman. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Next Gen Chef and the platform that powers this podcast, you can find us at nextgenchef.com, on Instagram, Facebook, and all the other social media outlets. I hope to hear from you and see you again soon.